All right, well, it's 8:30. So I will call to order the meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Committee on October 9th, and we'll start with approval of the minutes. So Councilmember Sundberg and Gardner.
I approve.
Member Gardner's muted. I approve as well.
Yep, I approve as well.
Okay, very good. Minutes are approved. And we'll go ahead and move to our first item, which is the Lowry resolution. And it looks like who is presenting? Janine?
Janine Rusted, Director of Planning and Business Development. I don't know if the mayor's on because I know he has been advocating for this. So before I jump in, wanted to give him a chance to say something, but
He usually tries to join.
Well, I will go ahead and jump in.
Okay.
I am going to share the map. Are you seeing the map?
Yes.
So this is a really exciting opportunity. This is about 160 acres. On the north is East 11th. On the east is Dayton, and then you can see the odd shape. This property, when Lowry closed, was deeded to the Colorado Community Colleges with a deed restriction that it be used for educational purposes for 30 years. That 30 years is up. Not much has been done on the campus. This is a really exciting opportunity for the city to try to work with the state to get a master plan for the property, get a mix of housing, including market rate, affordable housing, commerce, business for the city. When you think of this area in original Aurora, you have the Anschutz Medical Campus a few miles away. Then you go west to the Stanley, and then you come about a mile south to here. And this starts to make a really great, vibrant urban area. So we're seeking approval to go ahead and start that master planning. We're starting to outline the scope. There are going to be challenges. There's probably some environmental work that'll need to be done. But the sooner we get started, the better case we can help to make for bringing this into the city. And any questions?
Yes, questions from council members.
Yes, I have a question or two. It's a uniquely large infill type project conversion. Will it likely be? Will the city keep it? We just don't know the plan yet. It's just too early, I suppose.
I think that probably what we would do is look to do get that master plan, look to do an RFP to have a developer come on board to develop it to the vision, the parameters of what we want to include.
Okay, and then just clarification on the ownership of it.
Right.
Do we own it?
We don't right now, and that's one thing we'd have to work on the state, whether they would be a partner with us in going out for an RFP, if somehow they'd give us control. So there's details to work out, but that first step really is getting a master plan, a vision for what can happen here.
And the community college just wants to wash their hands of it, I suppose. It's more of a liability than anything.
That is a conversation they have not. I think there's one building that is currently being used for educational purposes. So over 30 years, nothing's been done, or not much has been done. I won't say nothing.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Gardner, do you have questions? I have one also kind of along the same lines of the ownership. So if it belongs to the state, Colorado State, specifically it looks like the State Board for Community Colleges, how are we able to do a master plan?
It's within the city limits. Of course, we would have conversations with the state. We're not going to go over into a corner. The more partners we have on board, the better. But just getting the authority to move forward, to have the conversations, to start the efforts, personally, I'd like to see what grants we can get, because the environmental assessments alone is probably going to be $100,000 to $200,000. So getting some funding from the state to help with this effort.
So, I mean, have we ever had this situation before? I know we have the land where the Day Resource Center is, and I think that one is dedicated for public safety, and this one was dedicated for educational purposes. And so just recently expired. So it is now, what is it zoned for currently?
It is, I'm trying to remember the zone, but it is, it includes educational. You could have some residential. I'm trying to see if Brandon's on. He at one point had provided me the zoning for the property. I'm going to stop sharing and I can see if we have that in the memo.
Yeah, because if it is zoned, you know, restrictive, let's say, for what we want to see as a vision, then we would have to go through council. Whoever owns it would ultimately then come to us, or let's say the state sells it to a developer, the developer then has to come to us for a rezoning. Is that kind of what we're looking at?
Or we could initiate the rezoning. It's MUOI, which is primarily an institutional. It does allow a little residential, but the conversation started with, could we rezone the property? But the question is, to what would we rezone it? And then you have to ask, what uses do you want on it? So again, having what we want first and then undertaking rezoning.
Okay, so when you say we're going to develop a master plan, is that is our staff is doing that, or?
We will likely have some consultant help again, because environmental assessments are very technical and specialized. So we do need help there. Staff will be heavily involved, but getting someone to help us with visioning, I'm thinking something similar like you've seen with the Anschutz, the FIC, updating that master plan, getting that type of vision here.
Okay, I guess my concern is us getting ahead of the process from a legal perspective, because if we're paying using taxpayer dollars to have a consultant do a master plan, and then let's say the state says, wait, whoa, that's not what we had in mind. So I guess that's what I'm trying to just make sure that we're in compliance, I guess.
Yes, we will be communicating with the state, and if they said, absolutely no, never going to let this go, there's no point. Yeah. But again, given that this land is in a prime location for urban development, I don't think, and in an area that needs revitalization, we're hoping the state's going to be on board, and we will have those conversations.
So what about from an economic development perspective, you know, adding more bioscience campus with some housing? Is that a potential use?
I think we would look at that, but the proximity to the campus, and this is surrounded predominantly by residential. We need to determine the high and best use, but probably residential with some commercial supporting retail. What are the neighborhood needs? Because again, this is a neighborhood that is seeing a decline in retail. We do have the retail strategy coming, and just with that, she read my mind and raised her hand. So Andrea?
Well, just real quick though, because that is a concern also, because if we don't have the right demographics to support retail, you know, we've got the safety issues with, you know, a couple different retailers, then I guess I'm looking at it from a jobs perspective. Like, we need jobs in the city of Aurora and not just retail. So anyway, Andrea, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say, from a market standpoint, we could actually do a market study, but in just my casual, let's assume that the state is interested in allowing us to work on master planning. I think a large piece of property like this could easily become an economic development generator with specific types. It's interesting that you talk about bioscience. And while we could make this another type of innovation campus for different types of things, because this is an exceptionally large piece of property. There is a parcel of that land that is carved out for Parks and Rec, but surrounding that, there could be a variety of uses like we have at the Fitzsimmons Innovation Community. Right?
Okay, so it could be a mix of residential, retail, and possibly a job center.
I believe there, from my personal professional opinion, is that there, with a piece of land this large, that there could be an economic engine that would be interested.
Okay, great. I know, Brad, you wanted to say something since you worked on the committee.
And so a couple of things kind of historically, again, private citizen Brad Pierce, not speaking anything else right now. So I was on the Lowry Redevelopment Authority appointed by Mayor Hogan. Gail Jetchek was also the other board member from Aurora on the LRA. In terms of environmental issues over there, there was there was a lot of environmental issues left over by the Air Force when Lowry was closed. There was asbestos from a torn down hospital over farther west. The asbestos was just buried in the ground, and the Air Force had to clean that up. There's underground plumes from jet fuel that the Air Force had to clean up. So I think doing an environmental assessment is okay, but theoretically, the Air Force has cleaned everything up that they were supposed to. Secondly, CCA does have a presence in that area on that map. They have the quad buildings. I believe they have still classrooms in there. There's a center for simulation for EMT and all sorts of different hands-on education for the students. There is the diesel program, I believe, still there, and the CCA is partnering with Wagner Equipment.
Oh.
So there's a presence by CCA over there, and CCA is building that new STEM building on the CenterTech campus, where the diesel program at Lowry will be moved over to CenterTech. In terms of retail, over on Quebec and Lowry Boulevard to the west a mile or so, there's all kinds of retail. There's a miniature Target, there's a Clark's Foods, there's all sorts of retail development just a couple miles to the west. So didn't want to cannibalize them if we in Aurora build something in this area. So and then I think that's it. But anyway, the other thing, lastly, the Colorado Community College System has formed a little subcommittee to try and figure out what this property could be used for. And Dr. Brownlee from CCA, I believe, is on that committee that CCCS has formed. So perhaps a conversation with Dr. Brownlee would be in order to figure out what does the state community college system have in mind, if they know.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your, your background, having been served on that LRA committee. I see that Mayor Kaufman has his hand up. I don't know if you caught most of the conversation, Mayor.
And I have talked to not only to and Chris, my name is gonna. This is really Maria Coombs' a proposal. I helped move it forward. And I've had conversations with Joe Garcia, who is the chancellor of the community college systems, and with Dr. Brownlee. Dr. Brownlee's is moving everything. Well, the new construction will replace everything, I think, but one building. And that's actually on the Denver side, surprisingly enough. So he has nothing that he wants kept on the Aurora side, but yeah, it's in my conversation with him, I thought that was kind of I didn't realize that the one building, and I think it's for some visual arts thing, I can't remember what it's called, is actually on the Denver side. The sad part about it is that the Colorado Community College system has had this for 30 years, a little over 30 years now. And the deed restrictions have expired in August.
Yep.
And for that, it had to be used for higher education. They've not built a single building, not a single build. They've repurposed some buildings, but not a single building. And have literally, and let the buildings that they didn't repurpose deteriorate to the point where I don't think they're usable. But yeah, this is I think this is a huge. And I started trying to work with Chancellor Garcia over 3 years ago. We tried to put together meetings staff to start talking about the area so that we were prepared to go forward once the deed restrictions expired, and he just wouldn't have anything to do with it. And he basically slow rolled it. And now in my last conversation with him, he's given me no indication of what he wants to do with the property other than do a space study. I don't know what a space study is, but a space study. And I just think that look, they control the property. As long as they own the property, they control the property. I've been in discussions with Representative Wiseman, who's looking at the possibility, not made a decision yet, but they're researching whether or not the legislature can mandate the sale of this property. They can hold the property indefinitely. And so we should start the planning process with stakeholders to determine what is the highest and best use of this property. But it will not be able to go into effect until they sell the property.
Right.
And but they absolutely need to. I mean, I think what they've done is disgraceful. I mean, I think it looks like a blighted area. I think it's about, with the exception, once you take the park out of it, so there is a park that the city of Aurora has that's at about, I think it's 10th and Dayton is the corner of the park. So that we've got a park area on the northeast corner of the property that we own. And I think if you take the rest of it, I think it's about 80 acres that's developable outside of that park. And I think this could be, well, first, it can't stay the way it is. I mean, for this city as blighted, as basically a blighted property. And it really something needs to be happening. And so as all this says, we'll initiate the process, the planning process, so that when they do sell it, whether they do that voluntarily or they're forced to sell that money, and I think one of the things they're trying to do is trying to figure out how to do a sale and keep the money into the community college system. I don't know what their scheme is, but yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't know if you were on when I had some questions about, could it be a job center, like for, another bioscience campus, or from an economic development perspective. But then we were talking about the fact that, well, like you just said, it is owned by the state. And for us to hire a consultant with taxpayer monies before we even know if the state will even agree to do, selling it to a developer or whatever, I guess I hope we're having those conversations before we hire a consultant, I guess is what I'm saying.
Let me ask the staff a question. Does it require hiring a consultant to start this process?
We were thinking of environmental assessments, but what we could do is have that as a follow-on step. We could do a document review. It's something we had planned on doing anyway. You need to pull together. And I have a draft scope of work, but highest and best use, we can pull in Andrea, her department. Let us refine a scope, but I think we can do a lot in-house. We can limit how much we want or we need from outside help. And this really is a long-term investment, as the mayor is putting out, in this city, in a piece of property that is sorely underutilized.
Right. No, I get that. I think it's, we definitely want to develop it to our advantage. My concern is paying for things when we don't even know if the state is in agreement with us. And I guess I'm saying, it seems like we should, like, the state should pay for the environmental assessment, not the city of Aurora that we don't even own it yet.
And that's where we can do a document review to outline what's been done to date. As Mr. Pierce was pointing out, there has been things done, what might need to be done.
Right.
And if we gain control to, again, RFP it for a developer, then they can include that. So that's one way we could rework it.
So sorry, my dog's gonna start barking. Who does the mayor need to talk to, get some sort of agreement that they are in agreement with us even coming up with a master plan? Or, I mean, are they like, hey, what are you doing? Like, this is our property. I'm just wondering if we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, I don't think they have the ability to block us from going forward to developing a master plan. It just wouldn't be effective until it's sold or under a different ownership.
Right, but what if we don't know? Why would we spend resources and money on something until we know it can be, that they want to sell it? What do they want to sell it for?
I think it helps tell a story and helps with the conversation with an area of Aurora that needs reinvestment, of how this can better the city. Again, tying it not only with the three corners so far, but think it's not far from Colfax and that whole area that just really needs resources, whether it's jobs, and there may be shopping 2 miles to the west, but that for folks that live to the east is further away. So showing how we can put land to good use in our city. And again, this being part of the city, the vested interest we have in seeing that the property is used for the highest and best use, knowing what that highest and best use is to go into those conversations, coupled with for 30 years, little to nothing has happened. It's time to get it moving.
If I could,
I mean, I agree 100%. It seems like we should have already some sort of agreement with the state.
Well, this does prompt the state to move. I mean, the problem is the governance of this is not directly under, it's a separate governance. It's a separate board with the chancellor that makes the decisions. But I think it just, if you want to say that, no, we're not going to engage, and I'll be happy to work with you on, I think what this does is sends a message to the state that the condition of this property is unacceptable.
Right.
And that this really has the economic effect potentially of being the equivalent of a Stanley Marketplace, in revitalizing an area that is really depressed. And that this is a fairly significant amount of land, and it is just amazing that it's really insulting to the city, the fact that I just remember talking to the chancellor in one of my many conversations with him, and I said, well, and he said, well, what do you want to do with the property? I said, well, multi-use development, with an affordable housing component. He goes, well, if you're going to have an affordable housing component, you really should discuss that with the Denver part of Laurie. I think, okay, this is incredible that you think it's okay. You just look down so much on the city of Aurora that you really think that this is acceptable. That we have to somehow get permission from Denver, from a planning perspective, if we want to do affordable housing. Are you serious? I mean, what you need to go look at this area, Councilmember Bergan, it would be my advice, and see for yourself what this looks like. That it looks worse.
I agree with the whole concept of revitalizing this area. It's just the steps. I see Councilmember Gardner.
Yeah, so I'm actually excited to see an area plan. As most of you know, I pushed for the development of a small area plan in Northwest Aurora along the Arts District. And Denver uses them to quite a bit of success. And to the mayor's point, I think there's tremendous opportunity here There's a lot of, high income households in the vicinity, not to mention the housing that we could bring there. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity. My only question is, because I do understand Councilmember Bergen's point is, so what resources exactly would we expend to draft this area plan? Because I mean, we can have the area plan, doesn't mean that redevelopment's going to happen, but like, what are we committing ourselves to with this?
Hearing the conversation, I'm pivoting. One of my superpowers is looking at it, starting with staff resources. Andrea, her team helping with highest and best use, and she's not raising her hand or sending me, my chats aren't blowing up. Using our long range team along with folks from Brandon's team who implement code to do some layout. We actually have some good resources on staff to help with visuals. Mm-hmm. I think we would need a little help with getting the master plan, but keeping that, say, under amount that we can either sole source or not invest hundreds of thousands. We would delay environmental, but we would at least be able to, through documentation, identify where there is potential. If we get control of the state, the property, or get the state's go ahead, that's where it would be in our best interest to invest more to get the full environmental phase 1, maybe even a phase 2, because then we're really getting it more development ready. But say roughly at this point, 30,000 for a consultant to help us. Staff time too.
So
well, and to be
one
clear,
more question. Just if we develop a master plan and then let's say the state says you can put it out to RFP and then a developer buys it, then wouldn't they do the master plan?
Well, we want to know the parameters. We don't want to give a blank slate to someone. The city has needs in this area, whether it's jobs, the affordable housing. So it might be here are components, or if we get a master plan, again, as the backup says, involving the community. So this being a partnership with the community to determine highest and best use, what we want, what we need, to develop that, and then making sure that a developer, a builder, adheres to those factors.
Yeah, can I finish my comments, Councilman Bergen? Because I
sorry,
had a follow-up to what.
sorry.
No, that's fine. I had a follow-up to what Janine said. I to be clear, I'm not scared of spending resources. So if this is an undue burden on staff, or we don't have the expertise, like, let's spend the money to do it right. Because to Mayor Kaufman's point, this is a huge opportunity for Aurora, and we can't get it wrong. And I think the other piece of it is, going back to what I said at the beginning, I think the city does have an active role to play in creating an area plan. Obviously, if a developer buys it, they're going to take on a lot of the details, but the area plan, the purpose of the area plan is to say, this is what we want generally this area to look like, and to give us a vision of where we want to go. So that way development decisions aren't being made on an ad hoc basis. That's the same, reasoning I had of why I wanted to do the area plan in the arts district. Same kind of thought process. So I'm 100% supportive of area plans. And just as a comment, like I said, I'm not nervous about spending resources. I'm more just curious what we think it's going to cost. But I don't want to put this all on staff if we don't have the expertise or the time. Like, let's spend the money to do it right.
Thank you. Councilmember Sundberg.
Thank you. Yes. It's interesting to me how the federal government and state government dictated what this should be, right? And then look where it is. It was not economically or market viable for all this time. So here we as a city want to maybe dictate what it should be, but perhaps we could get some feelers out there from, economic development, or what some certain developers might have in mind with their vision or their creative ideas, and sync up. So maybe before the city says what it should be, and we might have great ideas. What does the private sector imagine? Or maybe it can be a kind of a combination. Put it out there for some brilliant folks in the development community, and see what they have to say, and work in sync.
And if I may, to that point, maybe hold a few roundtables. I'm thinking of our next agenda item where we have residential developers, AEDC, Visit Aurora, the Chamber, someone from FIC join us and have a conversation. Affordable housing providers.
Mm-hmm. That sounds great. I'm going to mute myself, and Councilmember Gardner, you're on.
Yeah, I think, because I agree with Councilmember Sundberg, but I think to that point, that is part of the process of developing the area plan, is bringing in developers, economic development folks, et cetera. Puma, who we hired to do the area plan in Northwest Aurora, is doing the same thing. So to me, I think this gets that process rolling. It formalizes it. Government isn't good at a lot of things, but one thing they are good at typically is convening folks. And so when we do this, that gets the process going, in my mind, of convening the folks that you mentioned, developers and whatever, because they're going to be part of that process to give their ideas in developing what the final plan is going to look like.
And
I was going to say, it sounds like we have good direction as far as like what. Yeah,
we could come back with a draft scope outlined, magnitude cost, but first getting that go ahead to even put some time and effort. We have a very loose outline right now on a scope. We can flesh that out, show the must-haves, what would be nice to include.
Yep, sounds good to me. Councilmember Sundberg and Gardner, I think you're both on board.
Yep, I am.
Yes.
Mayor Kaufman, did you want to add anything else?
So, Janine, so your view is to kind of come back with a little bit more detail in terms of what that work product would look like, or the process?
My question is, would you like that to come back to PED, or would you want to see that in a study session? What's your preference, Councilmember Bergan?
I'm open. Other council members, or
I'm fine with it moving forward to study session. I don't think we need to come back here again, but unless the chair feels differently.
No, I'm good with that too.
Okay.
We will bring that forward with some more detail.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody's comments and questions. I think it's nice when we can flesh out things, and so I'm excited to move forward with this.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. We'll move to the housing UDO analysis update.
You have me again, Janine Rustad, Director of Planning and Business Development. Another topic that not only I am passionate about, but I can say the whole department is. At the onset of this project, what we said, it's not just about getting more housing, which we desperately need in the city, it's building community. So with that, I want to take a step back before we look at what we've done and look forward, and remind us of what the goals were that we developed with the roundtables with developers. So first and foremost, it is the production of more housing. We need to increase the housing supply, but we need that across both design types and price points. And then as well as helping meet our Proposition 123 goals of roughly 500 dwelling units per year. And just a reminder, we were one of the first communities to sign on to Prop 123. Second goal, while we're increasing density, we want to make sure we're maintaining livability. And sometimes the faster you go, the longer it takes. So what we're trying to do and work with the community is have the conversations before we draft UDO changes. We're also looking at our timelines for approvals. At the end, I'm going to share when you're going to start seeing some UDO amendments come forward to you. Councilmember Bergan, you said this agenda is a light. Put your seatbelts on. We're about to start sending stuff to you. And then because a lot of this conversation has been around the cost of housing, We are working with the development community to help quantify what do changes such as reducing parking requirements, like garage requirements, I won't say parking completely, or what does changing design standards, allowing more small lots, how does that translate to the housing price when that buyer buys the house or the renter first gets their first apartment or home for rent? So those are the goals we're working in. I did provide an updated spreadsheet tracking the potential changes. We've gotten a little more input from developers. We're still waiting on the code example to get more concise feedback on that. But one of the areas that has come up on multiple fronts, and we've tried grouping in this new spreadsheet, is parking. We've got right now a pilot project with Windler in their Midtown to look at new parking standards, whether it's tandem parking, allowing pads, single car garages, the combination, but also keeping in mind the streetscape, because when you combine these, one of the ordinances you'll be seeing next month is duplexes on motor courts and increasing the dwelling units on motor courts. The thing to keep in mind with those changes is while you are allowing more housing, those motor court driveways take up the street frontage. So 2-car garages, if we reduce it, that combination has an impact. So we are holding a roundtable, I believe it's on the 24th of this month, to talk about parking with developers. And then with the small lots, we recognize that small lots, Councilmember Sundberg, in your ward, that is becoming the norm of development. So rather than making small tweaks to the small lot standards, we intend to get a consultant. We're starting to outline what that project will be look like and get them to help us to make sure that as we're looking at those goals we're trying to achieve, that we have the street connectivity, that we have access to usable open space. I'll use myself as an example. I live in a community that is largely green courts. We do have one side of the street that is always front loaded so that the house is facing the street, so you have uninterrupted street parking. I have a small park that connects into a larger system across the street a block away, so I have somewhere to walk my pups and the kids play there. But it was well thought out and it's very livable. We want to make sure that these communities have those amenities. And also, as we're building more density, making sure that they have, hopefully within walking distance, if not, within a very short drive, small shops, small retails, so that they can meet their daily needs without having to drive 5-6 miles. So bringing a consultant on board, hopefully getting that underway beginning of January, that is going to be a fast track project because we really want to see making those changes in the early part of 2025. Questions?
Questions, Councilmember Sundberg or Gardner?
Not yet.
Nothing for me.
So before we
Sorry. I do. Okay. I just want to get straight on the duplexes because you said there's a roundtable on October 24th.
On parking.
It's on parking, but related to duplexes?
Nope, it's just generally parking because we have this pilot project with Windler. We've had questions about parking on multifamily housing. So I'm currently, by the end of this week, I'm going to outline the agenda for that meeting, but it's come up a lot. So let's further refine what the issues are. So when we get a consultant on board, we're ready to go.
So the parking pilot with Windler, is that they're literally putting in housing with the parking that
they are going through our approval process. So I just did a presentation. I was part of a panel, Housing Fast and Slow. Housing Fast is, from our point of view, you follow the code. you get that straight shot to approval. This is a housing a little slower because we're negotiating. We're seeing how things may work, which is a great way. Pilot programs, we love them because we get to test it out. We get to see on the plans what this looks like. Are we getting those livability? So that'll feed into the discussion at the end of this month.
Okay, and who's included in the roundtable? Is that a mix of developers?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've compiled that big list and we've sent it. I spoke with you earlier last week and said, I hope you don't mind. We haven't invited you because this is going to be really technical.
Yeah, no, I'm happy about that. I just want to make sure we have a good mix
Yes.
of, different
Multi-family,
perspectives.
single family, yes.
Okay.
Oh, I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Just real quick, then on the small lots, you said that would be January, you're bringing in a consultant to look at that whole livability, street connectivity, open space. And is that when you say you want to move it quickly, but you want to be careful, so you're involving Parks Pros Department?
Yes, absolutely, because as you're aware, they're updating their manual with dedication standards. Perfect world, none of us live in it. We would let them do that and then we'd follow, but it's going to be iterative. We're going to ask them, this is where we're moving. What do you want to see? That'll inform. So we're keeping this moving instead of waiting, and staff has a lot of great ideas themselves on what we need to do with small lots. It's just helping to coalesce so we don't miss anything, because this is so important. This is how development is happening.
Okay, great. Councilmember Sundberg?
Oh, yes, thank you. When it comes to the roundtable, do we feel like we're reaching out to most all of the developers, or is there a select targeted developer list, or is it for everyone that we're actively engaging and inviting?
Everybody were actively engaging. When we did the first small roundtable to help scope this out, we made sure we had someone from multifamily, a little bit of infill, of course, Chris Fellows for Painted Prairie, Windler. We had Bill Park Hill, who's doing more the infill in the city. So we had a good scope. We used them. And as we've invited people, we've asked, who are we missing? We had HBA at the table. Right. And they provide, they coalesce their membership to provide input.
Yeah, and Layla was involved.
Yes, consultants. We've had some realtors want to come to the roundtable, and we've said, join the conversation.
Speaking of realtors, I see Sunny Banka has her hand up. Are you there, Sunny? You're muted.
Here we go. Okay. I put it in the chat, but one of the questions that I have on the parking, and I would love to be part of the roundtable if I can be there. But we now have a bill that was passed at the state legislature that Governor Polis signed that says you can have as many families as you want living in a property. I'm in a 1974 vintage house in a cul-de-sac. So it's a big cul-de-sac. It's a 2-car garage. We have big, I'm on a half acre, big lots. And I'm telling you what, there are days I can't get out of my own driveway because I have neighbors that have got so many cars, between teenagers and 2 or 3 families that are living in the house that are, from other parts of the world. And long story short, if we're going to have tinier lots, no place to park. As a realtor, there's no place to park to show a house in some of these smaller lot areas, and then no driveways. This is still the West. People still drive cars. My concern is it being thought about, as we get more and more families that can live together, which, I think it is proving to be very problematic in my neighborhood. And I have 3 neighbors in particular, 4 now out of 9 homes in the cul-de-sac. What's going to happen? I mean, I literally have had days I've had to throw an adult temper tantrum to get people to move their cars so I could get my car out of my driveway because there's so many cars. So I'm just saying, as we narrow things down, what's going to happen with the state legislative rules that are saying you can move 20 families into a home?
Good question. Janine?
Yes, and I will look to Lena to back me when I stumble on these. There's two issues at hand here. One is the legislation, state legislation on parking. I believe that was near transit and for multifamily. Lena, did I get that right?
That's not what I'm talking about.
But this is issue one.
Okay.
That is correct.
And then the second issue is the occupancy limits, which is still restricted to health and safety. So these smaller homes, ostensibly fewer people, but precisely for these issues is why we're not just making changes to code, because in Ward 2 in Councilmember Sundberg's, there's not transit. So we can still provide parking. Whether it's single family, multifamily, but making sure we have the streetscape. And one thing I should bring up with my community that I love is that there are little pockets of extra parking within. So how do we incorporate that? Now, I know the counter argument from the development community is that parking takes up land, so it costs the land and it costs money to provide, but we still need it to provide the livability. And I remember being, when I started in planning after my law career, someone teaching me the two biggest complaints that you will ever get are barking and parking.
Yep. And
So
I'm going to add on, I would like to add on to that, because as a ward council member for 9 years, I get a lot of parking complaints. So it doesn't matter if it's just in more dense urban areas, even in areas with large single family homes, the way that certain communities are developed, there are problems with street parking, especially if it's not allowed. And then I have one in Saddle Rock South where they have these little parking pockets, but you're not allowed to park on the street because the streets are too narrow. Well, guess what? I get complaints all the time because those are filled. And especially if somebody has a party or just a get together with family members for Thanksgiving. So I think parking really needs to be addressed in a very practical way.
And we in the department, myself, we agree wholeheartedly. That's why starting with this roundtable and all these changes will not only come to PED, they will come to the Planning and Zoning Commission because they are UDO recommendations. So I just want to be careful with how we're having the conversation here. And I see Jessica Prosser.
Yeah, I see Jessica Prosser.
Good morning, Jessica Prosser, Director of Housing and Community Services. I just wanted to mention too that housing occupancy and the different externalities that come along with that related to public health and safety and parking and other neighborhood impacts is exactly why we're exploring the UDO as well as the municipal code in this process. And so as we talk with residents and go through this process, we'll hopefully come out of that with some changes that are meaningful beyond what we have in our code right now. So even though the state law changed, it doesn't mean that, that changes everything for our code. We now have to go back and change our code. And we still now have the 150 square feet per person, and code enforcement enforces that. And we've also engaged with the building department. So I just wanted to say there'll be more to come related to proposed code changes, both UDO and municipal code. We wanted to make sure occupancy was included in this discussion, as we know it affects both single family as well as multifamily throughout the community.
And I was going to say on the occupancy, I know there's that safety issue, but it doesn't out in wards where you have larger homes, you put 8 people in a house, you're still going to have a parking problem because there's just not, they weren't built to have 8 families in a house.
Absolutely.
And we have meetings scheduled not only between Jessica, her team, planning, our team, but our respective legal counsel too.
Exactly. All right. Anything else, Janine?
That's it.
All
Actually,
right.
yes,
Oh.
I apologize. I promised you, telling you what is coming to you. So far, what we are working on is the occupancy limits. We may take a little more time, but for November, the fence heights, that was on arterials, was a very easy issue. The duplexes on motor courts is being drafted. And then if we have a December meeting, if not January, on the process improvements, we are finalizing that preliminary plat neighborhood plan process, reduce the sub area variation, allowing more administrative decisions in sub areas A and B to put it in line with sub area C, and then looking at administrative adjustments. So progress is being made, and as I alluded to earlier, we're about to come at you fast.
Okay, we like that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then in terms of the reports, I see oil and gas has their report in the packet. And then, so unless there's any questions on that, we'll move on to Marcia McGilly with small business.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Marcia McGilly. I'm the Executive Director of the Aurora South Metro Small Business Development Center. This morning, I wanted to update you with some of the workshops and trainings and events that our team is working on for October and early November. So on the 11th this week, we're going to have a manufacturing panel podcast. Our partnerships are with Manufacturers Edge, the Office of Economic Development and International Trade Sustainability Office for Manufacturing, Capital Access, SBDC, and a business owner. And our strategy is to tie into Manufacturing Week, which is this week. October 17th, we will partner with the City of Aurora Purchasing Department for the city's Contract Opportunity Fair. We will certainly have a speaker as well as a table to talk with those that want to contract with the city. Also on October 17th is the Aurora Shop Local Lunch and Learn with the Economic Impact 3.0. October 18th, we're doing a buying versus leasing workshop, and that's what's happening in commercial real estate and rent increases. That's where the clients are asking for that info. And November 8th, we are partnering with the Small Business Administration, who have asked us to host a Boots to Business, which is veteran and family members who are either re-entering the workforce or wanting to create a side hustle that can travel as they travel in their military career. So those are the updates of events and workshops coming up. We're quite busy. The team's doing a lot of great work. So that's all. If there aren't any questions.
I have a question just on how you promote these workshops. A lot of times I think it's concentrated maybe in with the Havana bid, for example. Like I know they do Chance does a great job of making sure people know, but in other parts of the city, other wards, how do we promote this? Like, I mean, I think that like the Contract Opportunities Fair, I don't know if anybody in my area has even heard about that, or the buying versus leasing, Boots to Business.
Thank you for your question. How we promote, just so you know, is we have an newsletter, which we're happy to add any of you to. That information comes out monthly. We do Facebook, so that's how we reach people outside of our client base. We do radio interviews when it is particularly a Spanish language program. We do flyers that we promote with, and then we communicate with all of the partners, which Havana Bid is one of those. And Chance is wonderful about getting all that information out for us. So those are the areas. If there's something I can do for you, please let me know and we will add that.
Yeah, I guess I usually try to share whatever I see from the city on Facebook, but I guess I'm missing yours, and I don't know if it's, that algorithm that I'm not clicking or something, but if you could maybe send me those, then I can promote them also on my Facebook page.
Would the other council members on the policy committee would like that as well?
Council members Sundberg or Gardner?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yes,
will
thank
do.
You, Marcia.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Brad, I know you had a comment on oil and gas.
Yeah. Thank you, Councilmember Bergan. Just wanted to add, in addition to my report that's in your packet, we still have 2 vacancies on our Oil and Gas Advisory Committee. It's a citizen vacancy. You just have to be a registered voter in Aurora, and then the industry vacancy as well. So just wanted to promote or advertise. We have 2 vacancies. So anybody that's interested, please apply on the city's website. Thank you.
I thought that former Councilmember Berzins applied. Did she?
Yeah, she applied. City Council approved her, and she's a member of our committee. But in addition to her, we still have 1 citizen vacancy, industry vacancy. So yeah.
Okay.
Marcia's on our committee, doing well.
Okay, great. We'll get that out there also, I think, to our constituents. Thank you. Okay, any other reports? Not hearing any. So our next meeting is, what is it, November 13th, I think. So I will wish you all a great day, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.